Well, shalom, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I thought I would do a part two on the topic of the coming Holocaust. There's a lot more information that I think it's important to get across to the viewer and to get out field, just to enable us to understand. I don't think you need another video telling you what's at stake. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, that if Israel have to attack Iran hard and maybe do something in terms of hitting them with a bomb or something like that, you'd have to have your head buried fairly deep in the earth not to realize that that's going to have repercussions for the rest of the Jews in other parts of the world. And so Israel's really caught between a rock and a hard place. Certainly they have the military might to take on most, if not all, of the rest of the Arab Muslim world, which is kind of hard to believe, really, because they're such a small country. But be that as it may, the fallout from that could push us, if not straight into another Holocaust, set the nation of Israel up in the eyes of the majority of the rest of the nations of the world in a position where that wouldn't be very far away. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, that we're facing quite a few problems globally at the moment, and we can certainly tick that box next to the words wars and rumors of wars, as we can tick all the other boxes in terms of earthquakes in various places and pestilences and so on. And so rather than just do another video that kind of tries to scare everyone half to death, because there's enough videos out there that will do that to you, I thought that I would try and give you a really solid solution of how we can, if not overturn the current decree that seems to be going into effect against the nation of Israel, but at least maybe postpone it and buy ourselves some much needed time to get our act together. And so there's just so much going on in the world, not just in terms of wars and the geopolitical landscape, but in terms of governments. And one of the key things we have to remember is that from the very beginning, people have committed sins. But when governments institute laws that directly go against the laws of the Torah, this is the time, those instances are the times when the Almighty begins to start a process where he has to intervene. And usually it's not in a very nice way. If we look at the food choice of some of the delicacies in China, and some of you may be aware of some of the very exotic foods that they have there are living animals. This directly goes against one of the 7 Noahide laws, which is to, on the face of it, not eat the torn limb from a living animal. This type of practice of eating a living animal, whether it be a rat or a snail or anything while it's still alive, is sort of ups the ante on that. That's going even beyond surgically removing an animal, suturing the point where the limb has been severed back together, feeding it, keeping it alive, and then eating a limb, which is barbaric enough. But actually eating an animal while it is still alive is a very, very abominable act. And this is one of the laws that all the nations, all the Gentiles in the world have to abide by. And so, it's kind of ironic that some sort of virus, some sort of illness emerged from that particular nation, ground zero. Some of you might not believe that. Some of you might even believe that's a conspiracy. But that's just one of the many countless things that are going on in the world today that are really weighing things against us. And we are battling with a gender war at the moment, which is serving as the groundwork to bring a generation up with Sodom and Amorah type mentality. The whole ideology of encouraging a minor to portray themselves a different sex than they are biologically, and then moving them to a state where they have their sex organ removed at that age is absolutely unspeakable. On top of all that, we have the abortion rate being spearheaded in the world by the US, by America, United States of America, with over 66 million murdered children from 1963. The current figure, 66 million, and their blood is screaming from the ground. And on top of that, if we look at the motivation, generally speaking, of why people choose to get an abortion, it is for reasons that are far more trivial than people of ancient pagan societies who sacrifice people as a sacrifice, as a great gift to their false deity. So the motivation behind ancient societies sacrificing infants was as a something that would be considered a loss, hence the definition of a sacrifice, to please their false god in the hopes of having a good year, whether it be through having good crops or something like that. But if we look at the on average reasons that we see abortion is being partaken, is things that range from people just not wanting to bring a person into the world because maybe it'll just be too much of a hassle and too much of a lifestyle change, to somebody not wanting to lose their girlish figure, or somebody who doesn't want somebody to know that they're pregnant. Maybe they had premarital sex and the person got pregnant and they live in a very strict religious home. These are the majority of reasons. Now, on very, very few reasons, very few instances, I should say, but it does happen where a woman becomes pregnant from a rape. And so in those instances, especially if the young girl is quite young, and it could be life-threatening, giving birth at a very young age, if the person happened to get pregnant, then obviously that becomes a life risk for the person, and their life is to be spared. So in that instance, which is very rare cases, an abortion can actually go ahead, but that's only if it's going to cause the person a life risk or cause them significant psychological damage, being so young and giving birth. In those instances, obviously it would have to take counsel. You'd have to take counsel with some Gedolim, with some Jewish rabbis and so on and so forth, to get some sort of advice on that. But in rare occasions, it is permissible. But the majority of reasons why people choose to kill an unborn child is simply through inconvenience, which is an absolutely horrific motive for doing that, as opposed to the motive of an ancient pagan who was ignorant and happened to follow a false god and was giving up a newborn because they felt that it was a great sacrifice, which indeed it is. They saw the offering up of a newborn as being a great gift and a great sacrifice to their lives, because in the olden days, a person with many children was something that was an advantage, whereas in this modern generation that we have now, it's seen by many as being a disadvantage to a person, especially impacting their lifestyle. So that's another one of the things that that the Almighty is takes extremely seriously. There is the left and the right, which we have seen sort of two polar opposites of the sort of political landscape, and what's often called the woke left, which we didn't sort of see so pronounced if we go back maybe 20, 30 years, maybe not even that far. And so it's leading to a division in society, to the point that it's affecting everything, even down to the dating world, with people who are filling out profiles, and they have to put whether they're left or right in some instances, which is just absolutely insane. Yeah, so like I said, once the governments pass laws, for example, homosexuality, going back only as far back as 1984 in Australia, if you were caught engaged in an act of homosexuality, like intimacy with a man or a woman with a woman, it could be something that you could be charged for. In Israel, the government that we have there at the moment is almost worse than the enemies. You could argue are worse than the enemies of Israel, the terrorists, because their policies and the things they've implemented over the last 20 years or so, these things have very much been the catalyst for the Almighty to enable Hamas and various groups to move on Israel with such ferocity in recent times, because Israel have kind of a Western tolerance that has enabled the city of Tel Aviv to be among some of the most depraved cities in terms of its tolerance to the LGBT community. We said the LGBT community have taken over mainstream, all sort of mainstream events, such as the New Year's Eve celebrations, especially in Australia. I can speak of Australia at least, has been very much hijacked by the LGBT community, or at least networks that are pandering to them, and so they have a very hard emphasis on appealing to those communities. And we've seen recently in the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. So they're very much sort of hijacking a lot of these mainstream events, to the point that I took my kids down to a park somewhere in Sydney to see the fireworks, and I put on one of the news broadcasts that was televising the event, and it got to the point where my daughter asked me to turn it off, because even my kids could see how slanted it was towards that ideology, which is a universal way from where we're at in terms of how we perceive things. So it's one thing to legalize that type of behavior. It's another thing to go out of your way and publicly celebrate it, which compounds the felony, which adds to insult with the various parades and Mardi Gras that are happening in Australia and across a lot of nations, even in Tel Aviv. In many ways, the enemies of Israel are more operating sort of in terms of their respect they have for modesty, and certainly in Iran, if you are found out to be homosexual, you will be killed. You won't be charged and put in prison. You will be publicly executed. So they don't muck around. It's not to endorse these regimes and their ideologies and the Islamic ideology, but it's to say that these people, they take their faith very seriously. And the Jewish world have slowly sort of slipped to the point where most Israelis aren't religious. They are secular. A lot of Israelis eat pork. A lot of Israelis don't even know the Shema. They can't even recite the Shema. And many of them don't even know many of the high holidays. There's a story that came out recently in the current conflict in Gaza of a Jewish IDF soldier who was shot and he was dying, ringing his father and asking his father, Father, we're Jewish. There's something that we're meant to say before we die. What is it? What is it? What am I meant to say before I die? And the father, he wasn't religious either. And so he couldn't remember. And finally, in his grief-stricken state, listening to his son dying on the phone, he said, oh, I think I know what it is. You just say Masuza. Just say Masuza. So his son's last words were Masuza, 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 which is the cloth that is rolled up in the scroll that's put on the doorposts of Jewish homes. So that's a heartbreaking story. And it gives you some sort of snapshot into the level of the majority of Israelis and their allegiance and obedience in the observance of the Torah, which is beyond subpar. So this video is going to look at how we can turn that around, because that's really only going to be the only solution. And this doesn't mean to go out and proselytize to Jews if you are a Messianic or a Christian, heaven forbid, but to simply share lectures and videos with them if you're not gifted, you're not able, you don't have the gift of the gab, that are from tough speakers that talk straight, and none of these sort of fluffy teachers that sort of scoot around the edges and soft shoe everything, as the expression goes, but speakers rather that speak, tell it to you straight. And you want orthodox videos, orthodox teachers. You want to send those videos out and share those videos if you know any secular Israelis who are not religious. Those of us who are B'nai Noach, that is sons of Noah, and we believe in the same God as the Jews, and we have a love for Israel, we can do a lot as well. And we can also be partakers of any type of kiruv, any type of outreach, which is sharing videos and perhaps supporting different institutions that do a lot of hard yards in terms of their outreach and actually teaching rubber, hitting the road, hitting the ground running Torah. They don't put out many videos just talking about current events and choosing subjects that will possibly get lots of views and likes and shares, and putting up clickbait in their thumbnails. They are about the will of the Father in terms of getting people up to speed in being able to learn and live the Torah. But that doesn't mean that Noahides get left out of the loop on that. We also have to observe the Torah, but Torah that pertains to us, and you can watch some other videos that look more directly into the Noahide laws, which I won't get into in that much detail in this video. Suffice it to say, there are 7 laws, and they're seen as universally moral laws that a person is to be focused on. And these are actually 7 categories which make up between 30 and 60 laws that are actually also found in the Torah, many of them being subjects that are copiously addressed within the Torah itself. Things like refraining from idolatry and refraining from sexual immorality, refraining from murder, and setting up governments, not mistreating animals, for example. This is not another Torah. This is the Torah itself. These are all things found in the Torah, but rather these are aspects of the Torah that are applicable to you, and they are going to be on the radar of the divine court when you finally stand before the Almighty and His council. These are the principal things that the court in Shemayim will look at. If you have had a mother who is B'nai Noach, is a non-Jewish. Now, if you've had a Jewish mother, there is still a conversion process that Baal Tshuva has to go through. And certainly if you weren't born Jewish and you want to go into the full conversion, go down that path, you go to a Beit Din of ultra-Orthodox Jewish rabbis, ones that have fear of heaven. You do not, and I mean do not under any circumstances, flirt with the idea of getting a Reform conversion or any other type of conversion from any other sect of Judaism. You are wasting your time and you're presenting yourself before people whose their very eligibility as being Jews themselves is questionable, and you are courting disaster. You're not courting disaster, you're stepping into a tornado, and it will not go well for you. And I've mentioned it before in quite a few videos recently. Do not, and particularly do not go to an Orthodox Beit Din and keep things from that Beit Din during your scrutiny, because you will invalidate your conversion if you withhold any ideology or anything that you think that the Beit Din will look upon disfavorably if they are aware of it. You have to be completely in accordance with the 13 principles of the faith according to the Rambam. Somebody asks you what you believe, you say 13 principles of the faith. Anything beyond that straight away is a red flag, because they think, well, does this person even know about the 13 principles of the faith? Do you know about the 13 principles of the faith? If you don't know the 13 principles of the faith, not that you have to rattle them all off in order and from memory, but you've got to know that they exist, and you've got to be in accordance, have your ideology in accordance with all 13 principles to be eligible. Okay, that's about enough of the mayhem. What about the solution? How do we solve this problem and perhaps turn things around at this 11th hour? Well, it's first of all, I'll start with the calendar, with the Hebrew calendar. Whether you are Israeli planning to return to Judaism, or you are a Noahide, it's important that you be abreast of the Hebrew calendar, because that will keep you in sync with what season we are in. And the season we are in at the moment, we're coming up to the 9th of Av, which is historically a date on the Jewish calendar that is a very bad date for the nation. And it's heavily rumored that Iran, if they do plan some sort of retaliation attack after the death of a key Hezbollah member and member of Hamas, they will strike on that particular day where they perceive the Jewish nation as probably being at their most weakest. So these are the type of things that you're going to be availed of if you follow carefully the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar, and follow the high holy days and the different fast days and things of that nature. And that will be, depending where you are in the world, it could be Tuesday or Wednesday. And that is one of the fasts that the nation of Israel partake in. I encourage everybody to fast on that day, no matter who you are. But remember, fasting on its own does nothing. It has to be accompanied with a penitent heart and a desire to turn from evil and to do good. Okay, so what is the solution? Well, the solution is there's many prongs to the solution, and they're personal. They're not things that are corporate. They are things that are on an individual level, and they're very personal things, and they perhaps are very uncomfortable things. But the first thing that you should have on your radar is you should purchase a copy of the Book of Psalms, and I have a copy here, which is pretty well worn. It's one of the Art Scroll Masorah series editions of the Book of Tehillim, with some commentary, and this particular one has transliterations, and it has the breakup in the back of the monthly reading of Psalms, which I encourage everybody to get on board with. And this is one of the first things that you have to get on board with before you go anywhere. Move in any other direction or move. There's a reason why the Book of Psalms is the most dominant book that's quoted in all the various Jewish prayers and blessings. Now at the back here we have the weekly and monthly completion of Tehillim. Now you can follow, or you should follow this cycle of the monthly reading of Psalms according to the Orthodox Jewish cycle, which you can have access to those times if you upload the CalJ, the CALJ application, which is an Orthodox Jewish app which tells you the various upcoming holy days, and not only has the readings each day for going through the book of Psalms in a month, according to the schedule, and you'll be joining the rest of the Commonwealth of Israel in that recitation of Tehillim, which will be amazing because you'll be joining that chorus of praise and supplication with the rest of the nation in sync with them. So the greatest all the way down to the smallest is beseeching Hashem at the same time, or in the cycle of the rotation of the sun around the world. So that's one of the amazing things that this particular volume has. So you can read what the breakups are. And as I said, the CalJ application also has the breakups as well. I encourage you to read from a book rather than from a screen or Kindle, because it's very important that you have something tactile in your hands, paper and ink, and something that is not at the mercy of technology and electricity. Because at the very least, if your phone's not working or there's a power outage or whatever, you can light a candle and away you go if you are reading in the evening, so, or somewhere it's dark. So that's and not only that, there's actually a lot more. This particular edition of Tehillim, and there's various editions as well that are available from this same company that print these. It has Psalms for special occasions in the front near the introduction, after the introduction. And so there's various Psalms that can be read for special occasions or times of not so special occasions, if you know what I mean. If you want to pray for peace, one of the Psalms to read to help for peace is Psalm 46, for recovery from illness, Psalm 6, Psalm 30, Psalm 41, Psalm 88, and Psalm 103. Upon giving birth, Psalm 20. For one's son's success in learning Torah, that's Psalm 119, which probably some of you are familiar with. That's quite a long psalm. On the day of marriage, Psalm 19 is good to recite. For repentance, to do tshuva, Psalm 51 and Psalm 90, which probably is a surprise to some of you. There's even a psalm for Rosh Chodesh, Psalm 104. A psalm to have children. Many of you ladies out there wanting to have children and struggling. Psalm 102 and Psalm 103 are good psalms to read with kavana regularly to overturn that decree of no children. When traveling on a journey, Psalm 91. For a favorable judgment, Psalm 7, Psalm 35, and Psalm 93. And so that's probably one of the things that I would definitely recommend people pray for a favorable judgment for the nation of Israel, and have read as much as you can Psalm 7, Psalm 35, and Psalm 93. One of the other good things that this book has is an opening and a closing blessing before you read each sequence of Psalms, whether you're reading the monthly cycle or you're reading Psalms for particular occasions. The blessing at the beginning and after the reading of Tehillim is very good because it is likened to a band which actually holds a beautiful jewel or diamond. And so you're beautifying the mitzvah by introducing the readings with an introductory blessing at the beginning and at the end, which serves as a beautiful display resting place for that reading to reside on. And Hashem regularly reviews your reading of the book of Psalms and your kavana, your concentration that you bring to bear in that reading. And I encourage you to read it in your native language, as opposed to a language that you're probably not that across or don't know very well, because if you read the book of Psalms in your native tongue, you can dig a lot deeper, and you have a wider vocabulary and a wider ability to be able to understand what you're reading, and you can get more engrossed in the reading if you're reading it in your native tongue. That's not to say you can't have a go at it in Hebrew, and certainly if Hebrew is your native tongue, then of course you would read it in Hebrew. But it still has an effect even if it is read in your native language, whatever that is. One of the other things, before I move off the topic of Psalms, which is the first thing that you should have bedded down, and doing some of the things that I've said so far in this video regarding Psalms, is certainly going to have a positive impact on the world. You've got to understand that your personal conduct and behavior, and what you choose to learn and how regularly you choose to learn, is going to have a collective impact to the judgment, the din that has been decreed at this time against the nation of Israel and the world in general. So don't ever for a minute think that you simply being vigilant with the Brakot Hamazon, the blessing after meals, is not having an effect. It is having an effect like you wouldn't believe. I remember one sage, I don't remember who it was, I was reading in some book that if somebody knew the value of reading Psalms, they would read Psalms continually, all the waking hours of their day. If a person knew the value of reading the book of Tehillim. Okay, so probably the most important thing to mention in regards to the book of Tehillim is the Tikkun HaKlali, which is the general repair, which was given to us by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And this general repair, as it's translated, comprises 10 Psalms. Probably a good idea for you to get a pen and paper and write down some of the things I'm sharing in this video. So it is Psalm 16, Psalm 32, Psalm 41, Psalm 42, Psalm 59, Psalm 77, Psalm 90, Psalm 105, Psalm 137, and Psalm 150. And if you can read the Tikkun HaKlali on a daily basis, in addition to your daily reading of your monthly cycle, if you are struggling with some sort of sin or habitual sin or addiction or iniquity, that is to your benefit. But bear in mind that the reading of these 10 particular Psalms that have been formulated for a general repair is not the repair itself. So don't for a minute think that just by reading them magically you are going to be healed. By reading them and how they invoke you to feel, to actually put in the effort to do the things that you need to do to stop whatever it is your behavior is, which is wrong, that is the power behind the recitation of these 10 Psalms of the Tikkun HaKlali. Always bear that in mind. Don't start reading them like they're an eraser tool. So you can go and commit the sin and then read Tikkun HaKlali after the sin and the sin goes away. There's a misconception here because Rav Nachman of Breslov discusses that the reading has to occur within 24 hours of the transgression that a person committed for it to have any effect. But don't be misinformed to believe that that gives you the green light to go out and continually do the sin, and then within 24 hours read the Tikkun HaKlali and the sin will simply go away. It doesn't work like that. In fact, if you are thinking like that, you are going down the lines of thinking that you can sin because you will do tshuva afterwards. One who has that mindset, the act of doing tshuva isn't availed to him. So I hope I've been very clear there on the role that Psalms should be playing in your life, whether you are an Israeli, a native Jew, born in Israel, a Jewish mother, or whether you're a Noahide. There is no different and no limit to the use and the length and breadth of using the book of Tehillim, Sefer Tehillim. It is absolutely crucial, and it's your first go-to. When I do my prayers in the morning, the first thing I do is read Psalms. Absolutely crucial. This is a must. It's especially great for women to recite on a regular basis, and to read and to meditate on. You can also get a hold of the Art Scroll Tanakh series, which is a great series of books which have all the rabbinic or the a cross-section of Talmudic and rabbinic commentaries, And each chapter has an introduction of the context of the psalm, what the psalm is actually about. So if you're anything like me, and you're going to read this book so often, you will sometimes have difficulty trying to find out who wrote the psalm, because not all the psalms were written by King David. In fact, there were at least 10 other authors of the books of Psalms, including Abraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, and the sons of Korah. You should end up becoming curious and go, what motivated this narrative in this particular chapter? These books give you the answer to that. There's volume 1 and 2. You can pick them up secondhand off over the web, and these have so many citations from different Talmudic, Midrashic, and rabbinic sources, and they're all beautifully anthologized together in a one-stop shop. These are absolutely mind-blowing, and the footnotes are ridiculous too. They're just amazing. Some of the footnotes are just gems. Like, you just go, oh, they'll give little story and anecdotes. And there'll be a psalm that you've been reading for years, and you find out it was a psalm that was written by one of the sons of Korah, or it was at least composed somehow by one of the sons of Korah, while he was in the earth, before he and his siblings managed to claw their way out of the earth when it swallowed up Korah and his family. So that one particular psalm was actually composed on a rock ledge. Amazing things like that, that you get, apart from the practical insights and applications you get from reading this book too. It's in a way, this book of Psalms is like a chemist. You go into a chemist, unless you have a script from a doctor, you don't really know what medication you need. And so by studying the gleanings from the rabbis and the Jewish sages, and you kind of get a prescription from their immense studies and research, and the things they managed to actually draw out from being so devoted and so diligent in their learning. So in a sense, we get to stand on the shoulders of giants. So it's like being in the Garden of Eden in a sense, because they've created this beautiful garden with all these different herbs and fruits, and directions of which ones are the ones to fix certain remedies and ailments. If that's sort of an analogy that makes any sense. I'm getting a bit carried away there, aren't I? So get a hold of these. So you want to get a hold of an Art Scroll Masorah, Art Scroll Masorah series Psalms. Don't just go anywhere and pick up a book of Psalms. Get them from Orthodox Jewish sources. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't go out of your way and pick up Jewish, Orthodox Jewish executions of reproductions of the text from the Tanakh. Okay, so I think I have covered everything that I wanted to say about the book of Tehillim. Okay, so if you get across that, you will that will be a very good start for you. Number 2, you are to be across the weekly Torah portions, no matter who you are. And that means you should begin to develop a rough idea of what the Torah portion is for any given week. I can't tell you how many people are running off and delving into the Zohar, and if you were to sort of take them aside and ask them what the Torah portion was for the week, they wouldn't have a clue. And that's quite alarming. So the book that I recommend that you get a hold of to start your familiarity with the weekly Torah portions is the Chumash. This is probably the most common Orthodox Jewish copy of the Chumash, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, which is the Torah. And it contains commentaries from all the major Orthodox Jewish commentators throughout various generations, including Rashi and the Rambam and the Ramban, and even up to some more recent sages, depending on the volume that you get, because the one that I use at the moment is the Gutnik, which is a very Rashi-centric commentary, but it also has commentary by Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory as well. And I love this edition because this has Rashi's insights that he has gleaned from the text, incorporated into the narrative in brackets. And so you don't have to do any guesswork when you read the actual text itself in English or your native tongue, whatever that is. Bearing in mind that this is translated in other languages, I don't know. It takes out a lot of the legwork and the speculation because it adds Rashi's insights actually into the Torah narrative itself, which gives you amazing insights, and it almost means like some of the verses read completely differently when you read them in normal translations. But yeah, this is one of the ones I recommend if you've sort of had a few runs on the board, you've been doing it for a while, and you're kind of getting fairly familiar with this one. I do recommend you look into the Gutnick, but I don't recommend you get the Gutnick before you get this one perhaps under your belt for a couple of years. This is always the first go-to. This is the stone edition of the Chumash. So I hope I've covered everything there. No, I haven't. So how do we read the weekly Torah portion? Well, there's a way you actually read it. You can't just go and, I'm going to read the weekly Torah portion all on the first day of the week. The idea is to read the Torah portion that you have for that week over the course of the week in what's called an aliyah, or aliyot, plural. And these are small bite-sized chunks of the weekly Torah portion that are read on a daily basis. And by the end of the week, you'll have read the entire Torah. And then come Sabbath, you are to sit down or to stand up, however you're more comfortable, as most formal way you possibly can, because you want to show respect to the text, and recite the entire book. Well, not recite, but read the entire, not the entire book, the entire Torah portion on the Sabbath. And in the course of reading it through the week, it is also a good practice to read the commentaries. So every week, you will read the entire Torah portion section by section over the course of the week until you've completed it. Then come Sabbath, you will read the entire Torah portion aloud. And during the course of that week, you will also have delved into the commentaries. So in effect, it's almost like you're reading it 3 times or getting 3 passes by at the text. Twice through reading the actual text itself and once through reading the insights from the text, from the Torah greats of the different generations, as I've mentioned. These are crucial foundations to you, whether you are wanting to convert to Orthodox Judaism or you are a Noahide. If you don't do these things, it is not going to go well. It's not going to go well. After a couple of years, the wheels are going to fall off. These are the absolute foundational things that you are meant to be focused on. These are crucial. These are foundational. And if you begin to incorporate the reading of Psalms on a regular basis and start to really study and learn the Psalms and start to really study and learn the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, through the context of the Chumash with the commentaries, you'll be doing really well. So anything beyond this, if you can just stick to these basics as the core thing that you do, you'll be doing very well. Having said that, after any length of time, you will grow to have a more longing to learn more, because when one exerts himself to learn Torah, especially in times of difficulty, maybe you're in a situation where it's very hard for you to learn, maybe you don't have much time, the Almighty will reward you with a desire to learn, to have a desire to learn more and understand more as well. The funny thing is that a lot of people who have been Messianics for quite a few years, they won't read the Torah portion through the week. They won't be on a regular reading or a cycle of Psalms. And when they do hear the Torah portion at a gathering that they attend, they won't really be paying attention to it unless it's their time to go up when they're called to read the section that they've been asked to read. And you can have people that do this for years and nothing's really happening for them for the good in reality. So these are the baselines I'm telling you to get down. and this will literally begin to change your world. Okay, but that's not all. That's not all. So that's just the basics, right? But that will be good. That's better than probably what the majority of people have been doing before. Okay, and you might be watching this and you go, yeah, I do all that. Okay, great. Now I'm probably addressing this segment of the video to you. Now, if you are somebody who is an Israeli who's not religious, go to the Orthodox Jewish world. I don't care how you do it, and make contact with them and ask them if they could help you become Torah observant in your capacity. Do not go to a Messianic community. Don't go to a Christian community. They will, they mean well, but they're not going to steer you in the direction that you need. And this is why I always say for Christians and Messianics never to proselytize to Jews, because you're only going to pull them into your vortex, into your world, and it's a world that really is a world that's still finding its feet, at least as far as Messianics go. Christianity has been around for quite a while, but they don't sort of engender in their people the desire and the wherewithal to learn like the Orthodox Jewish world do. It's just a fact, apart from the fact that it's also idolatry and stuff like that, but that's a given. Okay, so for the Noahites, those that have a non-Jewish mother, 7 laws of Noah. These are things that you should be, this is a thing that you should be across. You should be focusing on the 7 universal moral laws, or 7 universal categories of laws, because as I've explained in another video, there is between 30 and 60 actual laws, and there are technically they're infinite laws, because there can be a myriad of different situations and scenarios, and so there's going to be no lack of learning things for you to learn if you focus on the 7 Noahide laws. And I want to make it clear that the 7 Noahide laws are part of the Torah, and many of those laws, the discussions and the insights and the extrapolations on these laws, make up a copious amount of material in Jewish writings, including the Talmud and other various Jewish midrashic works and so on. So topics like refraining from idolatry and refraining from sexual immorality, establishing courts of law, these are huge topics in the Torah world. And there are many works, Talmudic works, that discuss them for pages and pages and pages. This is why a Noahide who studies the Talmud is considered to be on the level of the Kohen Hagadol. But you'll get people that say, oh, Noahide can't read the Talmud. Certainly a Noahide can read the Talmud, as long as the overarching emphasis of his motivation to do so is to get more insight into the laws of Noah. Yeah, so just be careful who you speak to, because you'll find a rabbi that will say no to things, and you will find a rabbi that will say yes to things. The best scenario is to become acquainted with an Orthodox Jewish rabbi as best you can, if you can, because I know some people can't, who gets to know you, and they can give you advice based on the fact that they have an understanding of who you are and your background. A lot of people are just hiding behind an internet feed and social media platforms, and they can do this for years to their detriment. So it's really important that you get yourself a teacher or a mentor. My walk went from strength to strength after I began to fixate on a gentleman that I believed was really, really amazing in terms of his insights and understanding. And I think, if I was to use the analogy of sort of traversing across a distance, I would have been traveling probably, 100 miles to one mile, had I not been able to avail myself of this individual and his gleanings. So it's very important that you, and this is somebody I knew, I could talk to over the phone, I got to see on a regular basis, and we spent time together socially, and so we built up a rapport. So a student will build up a rapport with his teacher, and a teacher with his student. Okay, so 7 Noahide laws. Many Messianic believers, and I know a lot of Messianic people watch this channel, haven't previously been that aware of the significance of them and how important they are. Get them on the radar and get anything and everything you can about learning these laws and implementing these laws. They follow they cover a wide array of laws, including the laws of Lashon Hara, or Shimarat Halashon, the laws of clean speech, and what constitutes Lashon Hara, under the section of refraining from murder, because as I've said quite a few times now in some of my other videos, you can murder a person's confidence and you can murder a person's reputation. And anything to do with Musar, which is the refinement of a person's character and ethics, and improving a person's thought life, enabling yourself, whatever you can read to enable yourself to gain mastery over your thoughts, and literally sacrifice your thoughts to the Almighty and bring them under His tutelage, under His guidance. That will mean you can avail yourself of works like the Chevot HaLevavot, the duties of the heart, which I recommend getting a hold of Rav Victor Miller's new commentary and translation of the Chevot HaLevavot, which he translates, or his contemporary, his students, because he's since left us in 2002, Rav Victor Miller. They have entitled the work Duties of the Mind, because the idea is to have the heart, which is the seat of emotion, aligned perfectly with the mind, which is the seat of the intellect. And so I recommend that you go out and begin to purchase copies of the Chevot HaLevavot, the new translation commentary by Rav Victor Miller. Those of you that follow me with my morning messages know that we've been going through Rav Victor Miller's new translation commentary of the Mesillat Yeshurim, The Path of the Just, and we've just almost completed volume 1. And I've been going through with daily morning audios, sharing that book with quite a few people. If you're interested in me sending you the audios on every morning, I'm fairly good at maintaining consistency in doing that, with the exception of Saturday morning, and sometimes I miss Sunday mornings. But yeah, if you're interested in getting those audios, and if you can get out and start to purchase volume 1 of Rav Victor Miller's new translation commentary of the Mesillat Yeshurim, The Path of the Just, I encourage you to do so. But these are all works that are crucial to improving your behavior and your ethical outlook. And this is all going to have a bearing on improving not only your immediate geographical environment, but also the world in general. So we've all got to practice righteousness as best we can in our own backyards and clean up our personal behavior, how we conduct ourselves, how we speak, how maybe we're speaking wrong, maybe we are thinking the wrong things, maybe we're putting ourselves in places where we shouldn't be going. And one of the big things is maybe we are looking at things we shouldn't look at, which leads me to the next subject, that of refraining from sexual immorality, which is one of the Noahide laws. Now, this one is probably one of the biggest areas of victory that the enemy has had historically over mankind. And you know, it's like the old saying, sex sells. In particular with men, because men are optically stimulated, whereas women are more mentally or emotionally stimulated. And so one of the attacks that the nation of Israel had to fend off was the Midianites setting up a market near the nation of Israel's compound, near where they were arrayed. Their beautiful setup that they had there, and they were enticed and they were led away to be defiled by these women and serve a foreign god. And this led to a huge plague that ensued in the camp and killed many people and caused an absolutely devastating blow to the nation. So when the enemy can't attack you with a full frontal assault, he'll come around the back, so to speak, and try and do it by way of attrition, gradually wear you down. And when it comes to men, most men, they can be sidetracked by what they see, and this can lead to other issues, other areas where they can fall down. So what I'm getting at is that if you are at all maintaining sexual propriety, which is one of the 7 Noahide laws, which is applicable to everyone, then that alone is going to have you in good stead. And this is why in the Council of Jerusalem, with the early Nazarene sect of the Jews under Yaakov HaZadek, James the Just, this was one of the few things that were mentioned by the council that newcomers to this movement were expected to have maintained, and that is refraining from sexual immorality. And I think the other one was refraining from eating the flesh of a strangled animal and drinking the blood of an animal that's been sacrificed to idols or something like that. But that's pretty much it. Well, you think, well, hang on, where are the rest of the 7 Noahide laws? The idea and the understanding, even back then in ancient times, is that this particular area is such a dangerous area that if a person can maintain victory there, and they may not necessarily do well across the board in other things, then they're going to do extremely well. And the reality is, if you're actually maintaining yourself in that department, all these other things are actually quite easy. And so normally if a person is having victory in that area, by guarding his eyes, not being places where he shouldn't, not not saying things that he shouldn't, not involving himself on various mobile apps, social media sites and websites and things like that, he is going to naturally have an inclination to be doing well in other areas. Whereas you can be doing well in other areas of your faith, and you can ignore this area and it can fester and it can become massive. But normally it's not the other way around. I hope that sort of makes sense. And so, to the average Messianic that maybe turns his nose up at perhaps shifting gears and focusing on the 7 Noahide laws, I ask you, are you confident with the Noahide law pertaining to refraining from sexual immorality? Are you confident enough that you're across the board in that area? Are you guarding your eyes? Are you guarding your speech? Are you guarding where you are? Are you faithful to your wife? Are you engaged in immorality, like sex outside of marriage and things like that? Are you having an issue with pagam habrit, that is the wasting of seed, which is fairly prevalent with most men, even religious men? Have you had victory in that area? No, I haven't had victory in that area. Okay. Are you doing anything about educating yourself about how to overcome that iniquity? Have you got anything that's constantly that you're learning to overcome that particular area? No. Okay. Why not? Why aren't you shifting gears and focusing on overcoming these abominable things that many of us men do in the shadows? And so, this is one of the things that we have to bring to bear. We have to go, okay, let's get this sorted out, because the Almighty detests any type of sexual immorality. Remember, we serve a jealous Elohim. The attribute of jealousy isn't a wicked attribute. It just depends on what that jealousy is attached to. You can be jealous over the wrong things, but there are some things that you should be jealous about. In fact, if you don't show the trait of jealousy for certain things, then your marriage is over. Then there's something wrong. Okay, so if you have issue with promiscuity, get that sorted. Get that sorted. Jump on top of that over anything else that you want to pursue in the faith. Learning to keep Shabbat, learning to eat kosher, all these things. Should be priority for you. Now, quickly speaking of kosher, if you want to be Orthodox, you have to keep a kosher diet. You can't keep kosher at home and then eat out at restaurants. This is why it should be very rare for people who are Noahides to convert to Judaism, because it's literally a different universe in terms of your observance. It's a million miles away from whatever it is you think you're doing now. And the reality is most people don't see what is incumbent upon the average Orthodox Jewish male compared to how the average Orthodox Jewish Messianic conducts himself and where he chooses to go and where he chooses not to go. So we have to really focus on improving our behavior, improving the things that we spend time doing. Are you wasting your time on frivolous things when you could be learning Torah? And the final thing that I'll end on is precisely that. Set times to study and learn Torah that is applicable to you, and you want to aim for a minimum of 3 hours of learning that is applicable to you, which includes your baseline texts that you should be reading, which I've already covered in Tehillim, and the Chumash, the weekly Torah portions. And then beyond that, extra material such as learning Musar and learning the laws of Shimurat HaLashon, and even to some degree, to a greater or lesser extent, even for Noahides, to learn a little bit of Halakha, to become familiar of why certain things that you read in the weekly Torah portion happen like they do. Why is there such expressions in the so-called New Testament as a Sabbath day's journey? Is that just a nice poetic comment, or does that actually pertain to something that is to do with Jewish observance? And those of you that are familiar with the Gemara, I'm reading through Tractate Eruvin. I actually was reading and shared reading not too long ago, yesterday I think, or the day before, in that the distance one may travel on a Shabbat is discussed in this particular tractate, discusses how they can actually pinpoint which day in the week the Messiah will come, bearing in mind the distance one is permitted to travel, one can travel on the Sabbath and on a weekday. And it's just mind-boggling. You think, oh my gosh, I never thought in a million years all this stuff I was reading about, all the finer points of where an eruv can be set up and the distance one may or may not travel, could have any bearing on a person being able to pinpoint which day of the week the Messiah is likely to arrive on. Now, it's not preempting when he's going to arrive, but it was discussing that a person can actually, through way of probability and knowing these laws of traveling on Shabbat, or immediately before Shabbat and just prior to Shabbat, where the likelihood is in the week that the Messiah will actually arrive, which I just thought was amazing. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you found this helpful, please please share the video, please of course subscribe, and watch some of my other videos, because I believe we've got a great channel here, a very unique channel with some really informative videos that talk about stuff that a lot of groups don't talk about. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and bye for now.